Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
It's time, folks. It's Wednesday night. That means it's time for the Week 5 Starts and Sits in 60 Minutes, brought to you by thefantasygreek.com. I'm Keith Green from 87sportsfans.com, and I am joined in the studio by the Fantasy Greek himself, Mr. Jim Sarantias. Hello, Jim. Happy Wednesday.
Keith, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Are you there? Oh, where'd you go? I'm losing your audio. Where are you?
I'm here.
Are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I think it's just...
I think we're having connection issues with Mr. Sarantias.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you're cutting in and out real bad.
Yeah, I can hear. Okay, I'm here.
How are you? Let's see. Let me try one little switch here. Okay, now try it. How's that? There, that's much better. But
without technical difficulties to start.
Oh, you know what it is though? Is when I hit that switch, you don't show up on the program.
Well, I can from time to time hear an echo. Just letting you know.
All right.
Little reverb. But hey, man, I'm doing great. It's Wednesday night, and for all those people listening to us for 60 minutes of starts and sits, hope you're excited. It's a big week of fantasy football. If you're at 4-0, you're sitting pretty. If you're at 3-1, you're fine. 2-2, you're making it. 1-3, ooh, this is a big week. And if you're at 0-4, man, wow, you got to go on one hell of a winning streak.
Can I share with you what I was able to pull off in my fantasy league before we get into this week's matchups?
Oh, absolutely. I'm here to talk and talk quickly. So go.
Okay. So I was I'm 3-1 in my league. And then after this week's game, I get a trade processed. I'm in a dynasty league. And my brother and his girlfriend are in the league in two separate teams. And from her franchise, I managed to pry away Le'Veon Bell for Fred Jackson, Julian Edelman, and next year's first-round pick.
Wow. That's pretty... I would have rejected that trade.
Well,
what is this?
It seems like one might think that I overpaid. Really?
Yeah, it sounds like to me. The first-round draft pick's great, but to give up Le'Veon Bell, I got him. So Fred Jackson splits time with C.J. Spiller. You never know when he's going to hit. Julian Edelman. The Patriots' offense is a mess, absolute mess right now. Yeah. And I'll take the known quantity for the draft pick. I figure. Well, good for you, Keith. Seriously, good for you.
I call that a fleecing where I come from. But anyway.
That's what business is all about, my friend.
Folks, if you're new to the program, what we do is we go matchup by matchup. We give a little preview of the game, and then Jim goes and gives you who you should start and who you should avoid like the plague. So without further ado, let's get into the Thursday night matchup. The Minnesota Vikings travel to the Green Bay Packers. It's the Teddy Bridgewater era, and it's the end of the world, and I feel fine, pretty much. No Adrian Peterson, but you really got to tip your cap to the job that's being done in Minnesota. This going into the preseason based on the roster. This is not a 2-2 team at this point of their schedule. The Packers are flying high, offense clicking on all cylinders against Chicago. I won't get into that again because I don't want to get my blood pressure up. But Aaron Rodgers looked every bit the part. The defense, little suspect, gave up almost 500 yards, but they're at home. They don't lose many games in Lambeau. I know the Vikings might be chomping at the bit. It's prime time. Everybody's going to be ramped up, but I'm going to take the Packers at home.
And Keith, I'm going to take the Packers too. This game is just setting up nicely after the whooping they put on the Bears last week. I know this is a tough Vikings defense, but I still like Aaron Rodgers and all his receivers against a pass defense that's number 17 in the league, which means that despite playing well, it means that they're susceptible, and they're certainly susceptible to him in the passing game. I also like Eddie Lacy in this game. You can't. It's still early in the season for the running backs. I know people aren't happy with him, but you just have to give him a chance. And I think this is an opportunity here against a team that's allowing 113.2 yards per game. And I also like the Packers defense against a rookie. Doesn't matter how he did what he did last week. The fact is he's a rookie. He's going to be on the road, and he's going to be in Lambeau in an unfamiliar place. So you can look at the Packers as a low-end defensive option if you need them. That having been said, I love Teddy Bridgewater. Looking forward to his future, but I don't think he's a top play. He'd be a play in a 2-quarterback league, but he's not good enough in a standard 10 or 12 team league to get in there at a quarterback. Look at his wide receivers, Greg Jennings, Cordell Patterson, and the surprising Jarius Wright, all his wide receiver threes. I really do like Matt Asiata and Jerick McKinnon, though, against a rush defense that's giving up its fair share of touchdowns and yardage to the position. In fact, I could see it dominating because that's who Teddy Bridgewater will definitely need to go to. I'm taking the Packers at home, Keith.
All right. It's dangerous waters when we agree. It really is.
Yeah. Don't tell our wives.
No. Your secret's safe with me. Secret safe with me. Okay, so the next game on our docket is the Chicago Bears traveling to the Carolina Panthers. Well, there really wasn't anything good to say about the Chicago Bears last week in their home loss to the Green Bay Packers. I mean, except for the fact that they rolled up 500 yards of offense. I mean, it is what it is, but they just could not find the end zone. If you're a Bears fan, or Matt Forte's inability to score a touchdown yet this season has got to have you worried. They just don't seem to be able to figure that out yet. The Carolina Panthers have been up and down, and they were way down last week. They are the home team in this, but they're on their fourth string running back. Chris Agbayana was signed during the week. Jonathan Stewart, I know, was practicing this week, but you can't count on him for anything. I think it's going to be real easy for the Bears to kind of find their focus, and that focus for the Panthers offense is Kelvin Benjamin and Greg Olsen. I'm going to pick the Bears on the road here to bounce back. They have been a road team this year. They won 2 very tough road games, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast, and I think that they come in and get the job done in Carolina. I'm picking the Bears.
Keith, I'm picking the Bears for slightly different reasons. I just think the numbers work their way. And I also think they're catching the Panthers at the right time, both on offense and defense. On offense, as you mentioned, they're going with their fourth-string running back, Darren Reeves, who I don't think is all that bad of a play in fantasy. I mean, if he's going to get the majority of touches, and I think they do need to run the ball at least 15 to 20 times in this game to sort of get in sync and sort of get into the rhythm that the Panthers like to get into. I mean, he's a running back that could get the 100 yards and a score that the Bears are giving up to the position on average through 4 weeks. And obviously, and this has been a pleasant surprise, you need to get Kelvin Benjamin into your fantasy lineup. Right now, the way he's projecting and the way he's playing, he's a solid wide receiver too in lineups. Get him in, play him, just get him in somehow. And Cam Newton, if you need a low-end QB1, he's it. You might even have him as your backup, or now he's your backup because Phillip Rivers, who was your backup, is now your starter. But if you don't, you can play Cam Newton. For the Bears, I like this game really for Matt Forte, but for everybody. Jay Cutler, Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, Martellus Bennett. This is a defense that's giving up its fair share of scoring and fair share of yardage. And the Bears don't need a lot of yards to score the football. And the big reason is the second thing that's plaguing this team, plaguing the Panthers, is their defense. They're missing Greg Hardy. They're now missing one of their starting defensive ends, both to suspension. Hardy, we don't know when he's coming back. And ever since that happened, this defense has been imploding. It's because their front seven has weakened and can't protect their secondary from the kinds of passes that a Jay Cutler can put up. So I've mentioned all these different people for the Bears in fantasy. You play them all. Get him on the gridiron, and take the Bears on the road.
All righty. Next up on our schedule, the Cleveland Browns travel to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, you want to talk about a rudderless ship, although by all accounts, Jake Locker will be returning. They just don't have a whole lot going on either side of the ball. That being said, the Browns aren't exactly a shining star, but they are better than their 1-2 record would lead you to believe. So I'm going to just by this the feeling in my gut that there is nothing to speak of quite yet in Tennessee. I'm going to pick Cleveland on the road in this game.
Yeah, I think it's really hard not to pick Cleveland on the road in this game. My initial notes on this is one heck of a messy fantasy football game, and it's messy because there's just not a ton of players to sort of look at and grab, like immediately no-brainers, go get them, play them. But we'll talk about a little bit of that. First off, let's just say that the Titans give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing defenses. As soon as you hear that, that means the Browns are an instant pick-up and play this week. You can run with them as your number one defense in any format and expect a good game from them as they take on the injury-prone Jake Locker, who struggles on offense. I think is still nicked up, banged up, but whatever the case, you can go against them and feel pretty confident they're going to do well for you. In terms of Browns players, Jordan Cameron's coming back this week. He's probably the best to do something, and he remains a solid tight end one. Sort of a sleeper in this, or a player that might not be talked about in most circles, is Andrew Hawkins. The Titans allow the 9th most yards per game to opposing wide receivers. I think that's enough to kind of look at Andrew Hawkins and say, this is a game where he could make some noise personally and be a 100-yard receiver. Now, I'm not telling you to instantly start him. I'm saying if you're looking around and you're having a hard time plugging in a wide receiver, or a hard time plugging in a flex play because there's 12 teams or more in your league, he's a player you can consider. I like Bishop Sankey for the Titans. Ken Whisenhunt is finally, he makes some comments about his footwork improving, and I'm thinking to myself, what's he watching? What football games has he been watching? But anyway, as long as he's saying he deserves more touches, I think that's the big signal to say he's going to play, and he's going to play against the number 22 rush defense, which gives up 127 yards per game. I like him as a low-end RB2 and certainly as a flex play. And one player I would bench, Kendall Wright of the Titans. He's going to be up and jammed up by Joe Hayden. I like the Browns on the road.
If you have lineup questions of your own, please don't hesitate to call in 585-633-7487. That's 585-633-7487 to call in with your lineup questions, and Jim will break it down for you and hit you in the face with a fantasy football 2x4.
Fantasy football nugget. Let's make it a nugget, no 2x4.
It's much more impactful when it's a 2x4.
Okay.
The St. Louis Rams travel to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles somehow are 3-1. They fought and clawed. They've had to come back in a couple of those wins, and then they were just dismantled by San Francisco last week, at least offensively. So what do you take from this matchup with the Rams? Well, the Rams still don't really have a quarterback. Zach Stacy has shown flashes, but nothing really to get all fuzzy warm about. Brian Quick, he's probably an NFL receiver. He just doesn't have anybody throwing to him. St. Louis is a hell of a defensive team as well, but they're on the road, and I like the way the Eagles play at home. They're 2-0 this year. I'm going to pick the Eagles in this game at home.
And I agree with you, Keith. This is definitely a game that is ripe to be a bounce-back game for the Eagles after what happened last week. The Rams have their own problems, and I know they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, so I expect them to make this a close game. But you can't help but sort of look at the Eagles and still look at them player for player and say to yourself, this is the better team that at home should have its way, with a Rams team that, while they have some talented players, they're not very deep on getting confirmed output from or an impact from these players. So let's start here. Let's start with the Rams. Zach Stacy. This week he is finally an RB1, going up against a defense giving up 133.8 yards per game and a TD per game. And what that equates to in fantasy terms, and this is in non-PPR leagues, that's 22.2 fantasy points per game. You got to like it. You got to play him. I also like Brian Quick. He would be better with a better quarterback. There'd be so many better things to talk about as it pertains to Brian, but you know what? He's still a wide receiver this week. The Eagles, they give up the 4th most fantasy points per game to the position, and that's roughly 257 yards per game. And if you're going